All right, so it's a beautiful day here in San Francisco. Surprisingly quiet. Here is the scene I'll be using for inspiration. I plan on leaving out the cars in the foreground. I'll be painting on a 14 by 14 inch gessoed panel, and I will be using my usual limited palette of colors today. I've got a number 3 natural bristle filbert here, and I've thinned some burnt sienna with odorless mineral spirits. And as usual, I am mapping out the big shapes. I'm paying attention to the darkest darks, which are the trees. The buildings are in full light. There are not a lot of shadows, which can be challenging. I feel like I want this tree to come down a little bit more. There'll be some dark cars in this area right here. Some buildings on the side here that are actually in shadow, for now anyway. But I will keep them dark, so all of this will be dark. There are also some shadows on the road from these trees, which I may lose, so I want to sketch them out in case they disappear. All right, so at this point I've walked back from the panel about 10 feet, just looking at the composition, focusing on the big shapes. And I know I talk about using big shapes quite a bit. Cityscapes are a place where it's essential to use big shapes. So I've got one big shape for the sky. This group of buildings over here is one shape. This group of buildings is another. This street is a shape. The group of trees is a shape. This group of trees, etc. So that's how I go about simplifying a complicated scene. Starting out with my darkest darks, I've got a mixture here of alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. And I have thinned the mix a little bit with liquid and odorless mineral spirits. I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat. And somebody's coming out of their garage right here. The car backing out was not a problem. In fact, she apologized to me for getting in my way, which I assured her was not a problem. I am squinting at the scene to throw my eyes out of focus in order to simplify the shapes. And right now I'm just looking for the darkest darks. I've mixed up a green here using cadmium yellow medium and ultramarine blue. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of alizarin crimson to warm it up. I mix all of my own greens using ultramarine blue or phthalo blue and cadmium yellow medium usually. Occasionally I'll use cadmium yellow lemon. When I'm painting in the city, I like to keep my palette as simple as possible in order to maintain color harmony. There are a lot of random colors in the city, and if you paint all of the colors as you see them, the painting can look somewhat chaotic. I'm really going to try to keep the detail to a minimum in this painting. This is a fairly small panel, and you could really get carried away and frustrated. You could be here all day, and that's not what I want to do. I want to capture a quick impression of the scene. For the sky, I'm starting with a mix of titanium white, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue. Paying attention to values here, the value of the sky is slightly darker than the value of the buildings. So I'm keeping the sky just above a mid-tone and trying to keep it saturated as well. There's some distant hills visible, and I think I will include them because they're sort of a darker value blue, bluish purple, and it'll be nice to have this dark value close to the light value of the road. It'll make the top of the street here stand out a bit more, hopefully. Adding a bit of burnt sienna to my dark mixture here, which will push it closer to black. Adding some of the dark parked cars. Again, just looking for the general shape of the grouping of cars. For the street color, I've mixed up a gray here using burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and titanium white. And my palette is a mid-tone, so I'm going slightly higher in value than a mid-tone. There are variations in color and temperature in the street color, but for now I just want an average color and value, and then I'll make adjustments as needed. And I am keeping the paint thin and trying to apply it quickly. And this number 6 natural bristle flat is working out well. Some sidewalk color over here. Often I just mix into grays that are already on my palette. I'm going to use this color also for some of the shadows on the buildings. I do want to leave a little bit of the alizarin crimson color. It's a fun challenge to see how loose and abstract you can keep your cityscape painting and still have it make sense. Plein air in the city is definitely a challenge for many reasons. It can be difficult to find a place to set up. Also, there's usually a lot of information that needs to be simplified, but I really do enjoy it. I like talking to people, and I like the challenge of trying to take a busy scene and simplify it. Got a warm light mixture here of titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, and burnt sienna. This will be my starting point for the buildings. Still thinning with liquid and still trying to work quickly. My mixes are not very clean. I'm dragging other colors into these colors, but I'm not worried about that. All of these imperfections will hopefully make the painting more interesting. As long as I have the proper suggested details in the final product, the viewer's imagination will fill in the blanks. And the suggested details are typically windows and then reflections on the cars. Now I'm working into some of these shapes here with thicker paint and more accurate color, adding a bit of saturated bluish purple to the shadows. I'm starting to get quite a bit of light and reflection on the panel, which is not ideal, so I may have to move my easel. My friend Tim, who you may have seen in one of the recent videos, always brings an umbrella. I don't use an umbrella anymore just because it's usually so windy where I'm painting, and it's just an extra bit of gear for me to carry. I have gotten used to painting without an umbrella, so it's not really a problem. I reinforced the darks on the trees, and now I'm working into the tree shapes with a variety of lighter greens. So I'll have some cooler greens like these, and then I'll add a bit of alizarin to warm up the green. This tree here is a bit warmer, and this one as well. And I am trying to keep some transparency in the strokes. I added a bit of phthalo blue to the green for the trees on the left-hand side of the street. And you can see I'm leaving little bits of the sketch showing through, little bits of warmth. Adding some thicker paint to the street, trying to make deliberate brush strokes. This bit of street here has a bit more of a purple look to it, so I used some purple gray from my palette to push the color in that direction. I want to make sure that I keep the value of the street dark enough that I can include street markings. The street markings are the details that define the street. For this section right here, I've added a bit of burnt sienna because seeing a bit more warmth and keeping the edges of my shadows soft. Mixing up some random light value colors here. I am running out of shades, so I'm going to try to finish up. Still using the number 6 natural bristle flat. I may use a straight edge for some of the lines, but I'm going to try to keep it as freehand as possible. Alright, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about an hour and a half to complete. It was finished on site. To recap my process, when painting cityscapes, the most important thing is to simplify. And what I do is simplify by breaking the scene down into simple shapes. In other words, a simple shape for the buildings on the right, simple shape for the buildings on the left, simple shape for the sky, for the street, for the trees, etc. And then I work into those shapes with subtle suggested details. So for example, with the buildings, I add a few roof lines and windows. And for the cars, I add some highlights and then maybe the dark portion that's under the car, like the shadows. And then for the street shape, I add a few street markings. And that's about it. But it's really important to maintain the original composition by not breaking up those simple shapes. If you break up the shapes with too much detail, you lose the composition and the painting can feel busy and cluttered and it just will not work out. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos and it's much appreciated. There's also a PayPal tip jar down below, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.